We all long for happiness. It's the thing we most dream for.
Hail to the altruistic revolution. Let's go for it.
Now the first exercise is just going to get us ready for the big finale.
We're happy to be here. We're excited. Yeah? God, look at this place. It is beautiful. What an amazing conference. And also, thank you again to Dr. Maria. That was backstage sitting there trying to fight back a few tears. She is just incredible. And being able to share that story, to sort of find the positives in life, that's something that I do all the time. And so I really, really connected with that talk. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've got to work on, some of the amazing people I work with, but also how technology and innovation, that style of thinking, can be coupled with purpose to find out new ways of improving our society, improving the world, and improving our lives. So the story starts a little bit back in the past. I'm going to get you to take notice of this picture first, not just because I'm in it, but just take notice of the picture, and I'll come back to a reason why. So starting out when I was really young, when I was this young, I didn't really have a great deal of toys, but I had a very different upbringing to a lot of people in the 80s. Very quickly, I'm 32 years old. Don't be confused by the hair or the half Asian. So I thought I'd put it out there. My dad took my toys when I was really young. He took my toys in for, he took it into work. But I had giant Lego blocks, you know, the Duplo. Did anyone have those? Yeah, okay, cool. So it's not just me. I had them for a little while, and then they're all gone. Then I went into work with my father to find out where my toys had been going, and honestly, it was a really different upbringing. I was sharing my toys with a robot. As I found out, this was Dad's other kid, until we had triplets 3.5 years after me. But anyway, side story. So this is a robot that was playing with my Duplo blocks. He would put it on the block on a conveyor belt, it would move, and this robot would watch and go and pick it up and move it somewhere else. Now, it seemed pretty simple as a task. It's simple for people, but to program all those things into a robot is actually kind of difficult. To try and program in, the shape of the block as it's seeing it from the cameras in its claw, the shape of the block, the size of it, the speed that it's moving at, where it's going to intercept it because it knows that it can't teleport. So instead of programming in all of these different things, what they decided to do was to program in artificial intelligence. And in the 80s, in the 90s, even though AI was a thing, it wasn't really acknowledged that much across the academic community. But my dad knew that it was going to come back and it was going to be a big thing, so he kept persisting through it. Now, this robot learned to pick up the blocks and move them around. That was all good. Then it went on to playing games, learned to play checkers, learned to play chess. It was playing checkers here. It had a real personality to it, as I found out. If it took one of my pieces, it would take it to the edge of the board and just dump it, and then take its piece and carefully place it in the position it took. It was a real bastard. I was only 5 years old and I was being taunted by a robot. Slightly different upbringing to most in the 80s. But what I could see out of all of this was that this robot was learning for itself, and I could appreciate that. It gave me this bit of inspiration that I might one day want to work on robots and artificial intelligence without really knowing why. So I went through high school. I was in pretty much the bottom half of my high school the whole way through. What happened when I got to the HSC? I wanted to get into electrical engineering. That was 72 UAI at the time, and I was given an estimate of 66 going into the HSC. And I said, okay, I better aim higher here. I said, I'm going to set the bar really high. I'm going to set it at 90, because I've never hit 90 in my life. So I'm going to aim at 90, and if I fall short, then I'll still get in. I only need 72. So I reminded myself of this goal every day, and I put this up everywhere. I put the 90 up on the walls, I put the 90 on my books, I put 90 everywhere. And then my mum ended up making a bet. She said, if you get 90, I'll get you a car. And I went, brilliant. And then she told all my friends it was a safe bet, which wasn't very nice. But I aimed at 90. and worked my ass off towards that goal. And guess what I got? I got 89.75. No car, Jordan, but that's all right. Almost missed it by that much. But it was good because what I realized was I got into my course, and that was the main thing. Having said that, I got into electrical engineering, started working in it, found it really, really difficult, and found myself in this sort of slump again because the first 2 years I was just struggling. I was struggling to pass. I was working my ass off, and I was only just barely passing my subjects. So end of second year, I told my father, I said, I'm done with this. I'm going to go and do something else. I'm going to become a professional tennis player or an Air Force pilot or a psychologist or anything else other than this. And he convinced me that he was going to mentor me through the next semester. And he said, just have one more semester, see how you go. And if you're convinced at the end of that you don't want to do this anymore, then you can drop out. As it were, that was the semester that I went to a backyard pool party, and we weren't the smartest kids in the street. We had a diving board at a backyard pool. That was our first mistake. Second mistake, it was on the shallow end of the pool. Clever kids. And so, yeah, we were being, kids, diving into the pool. Kids, I was 21 at the time. My mum said, she was there, it was family, friends. My mum said, you probably shouldn't be doing that, shallow end of the pool, just be careful. And I said, Mum, we've got this covered, we're going in on an angle, it's all good. Ended up getting creative with our dives, and I ended up running, jumping off the board, it came loose and moved back, and I went straight down into the pool, not knowing which direction I was headed in. Remember my arms out, and then suddenly my head hit the bottom and just went crunch, and I felt this deafening crunch across the back of my neck. I was instantly convinced that I was never going to play tennis again. That was the first thing that jumped to mind. I quickly came to the top of the water and moved my arms, moved my legs, that was okay. My head was kind of not really holding itself up. Rushed to hospital, this was the x-ray that came out. I got really, really lucky. There were no fractures, no breakages, but what happened was I'd torn some of the muscles in my neck, and you don't realize how much you use every muscle in your neck until you can't use it. So I was put in bed, spent one day just not able to move, and I kept playing this moment over and over and over in my head, and that kept playing for weeks. So when I was able to get up and walk around, I realized how lucky I got, and I started looking into what would have happened if this was a permanent thing. I couldn't quite get my head across it. I thought, well, if this was permanent, we know that if you break your neck, then you can't move from that point down. So what would I use? How would I get myself around? What sort of technologies are out there? I realized if you can't use your arms, then you can't use a joystick. That's about as far as I knew for wheelchairs and for disability technology. I knew nothing about disability. So what I did was I started learning about it, started seeking out stories, learning about how wheelchairs are operated. I found that if you can't use a joystick, it's moved from the joystick, the hand, to the chin, and that's become the chin stick. If you can't use that, you've got a tube in front of your face, and that's called the sip and puff method. It's what the famous Christopher Reeves used after he got thrown from a horse. But if you can't use that, then apparently there was nothing else left at the time. And so I started looking into it, started going into rehabilitation homes, and started finding that even after months of using the tube, the sip and puff method, I saw kids still crashing it, but that was all that was available. And then I started meeting people who couldn't use any of these systems because it wasn't adequate. So when I first found out that this thing called locked-in syndrome was a thing, I didn't know how I was going to respond to meeting someone with locked-in syndrome. And the first time I did meet someone, I could not believe it. I found a person who was happier than me, who was more busy than me, who was doing more with her life than most people I knew, and it changed my perspective on everything. Then I started meeting more people, and I started going, wow, this is incredible. I'm meeting really happy people who are just wanting to contribute to society and who have a very positive outlook. Instead of placing up all those barriers that we've placed up over our life, they're saying, I can achieve anything that I set my mind to. When I met Jess, she absolutely changed my life. I went from not being sure if she could understand me or not to 5 minutes later finding out that she was born with high-level cerebral palsy that affects all of her motor functions and her speech. And we have one child every 15 hours in Australia born with cerebral palsy. But she passed me a business card and said, typed on an iPad and said, this is what I do. She's a professional photographer, graphics designer, and website designer. She took the photo at the start that I got you to look at. She's also designing our websites for us. And we're doing many other projects as well, which I'll go into soon. So I started thinking, okay, surely technology could play a role here. And I moved all of my studies into something that had purpose and had meaning to it. So I kept learning robotics and artificial intelligence, but I had a purpose for it. I wanted to work with my friends to find out ways that we could help improve mobility. So I moved all of electrical engineering towards this space, finally started doing well, but it was because I wasn't aiming at marks anymore. I was doing it with a purpose. And became the top electrical graduate for my year and then top PhD graduate for my year as well. And that was because I was working hard with friends towards a common goal. And what we worked on was a power wheelchair that could see and think for itself as a robot, uses cameras to see and think for itself, and it's thought controlled. We designed a headband that picks up on the electrical activity of your brain, because everything that makes us move, everything that makes us us, all ways that we operate are all electrical signals. So what makes this magic happen is the brain sending electrical signals to the muscle fibers within a muscle to make it move, and we're intercepting those signals. I'll show you a little bit more about that later. So some of the things I started realizing with technology is that there's a great divergence. We had cameras on the wheelchair and they were diverging outwards into many different fields. And one of those fields is virtual and augmented reality, which is starting to utilize new ways of how cameras work, but also utilizing the other technologies that we've had available to us, like smartphones. Basically, the idea is if you take a smartphone, put it into a cardboard box and strap it to your face, couple of lenses so you can see a virtual world from one angle, and as you turn your head, it pans the screen really quickly. It becomes a neurological trick. Now, this has wonderful and some scary applications, but it's really interesting. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the virtual world does not look real. Has anyone tried virtual reality? I'm seeing quite a few hands. Let's go the other way. Who hasn't tried virtual reality? Wow. Oh God, you guys have got to try virtual reality. It's like, I know you've seen people with the box on their face and you go, I know what that's like. No, it's not. It's a neurological trick. It's very immersive when you're in it. So even if the city doesn't look real, even if the plank doesn't look real or this cat doesn't look real, this is what happened when participants of this particular study tried to save the cat. I love it. So I've just done a documentary on VR. It's going to be coming out in September, so keep your eyes out for that one. But the idea here is that technology, creativity, innovation, diversity, inclusion, when you bring these areas together, it's amazing what we can achieve. Yes, there are some negatives. Every technology brings negatives with it, and we get fed a lot of the dystopic futures, but there's also a lot of positives. There's also a lot of opportunities, and this is why I started Psykinetic, which is the idea of psyche and kinetic, bringing the mind into action, which was to design new types of technologies to empower our friends. So coming back to Jess, I'd been to many concerts with Jess, but I could see that she wanted to play music herself. And this is what we decided to do through my team at Psykinetic.
We had a meeting with Jess and it was an instant bond.
They started selling tickets to it and then the concert sold out before we even started creating the device. We had about a 2-week time frame to develop it, and then that would give her about 4 weeks to practice.
I had not used eye-control technology before this, and I knew absolutely nothing about classical music.
And she was getting set to play alongside the Australia Piano Quartet.
In the lead up, we really didn't know what was going to happen. Everyone was a bit nervous.
She didn't believe that she could be a musician at the beginning, and she just absolutely blossomed.
It was a great performance, and we had a standing ovation afterwards. Jess had them in the palm of her hand.
I think we all just felt so proud of her. Gives me goosebumps watching that. So Jess was helped us design the tool. We had no clue how to design it. We're not musicians. We like to play around with the guitar once in a while, but we have no idea. So we had to talk with the Australia Piano Quartet. We brought artists into the room. We brought all these different people to give us different perspectives into this one project. We designed it in 2 weeks, allowed Jess to play music with her eyes. She absolutely nailed that concert. She practiced her ass off for 4 weeks straight. And because she just, like I said, she just sets her mind to things and goes, I can achieve it. She got up and played at the Opera House and played a killer concert, sold out. It was amazing. And she's only got bigger concerts coming up. But I wanted to see another way that technology could really take that next step forward. Jess's technology was using an external eye tracker that's been put into the gaming markets, a couple $100 that you connect to a computer, whereas we wanted to develop something new because in this documentary, Becoming Superhuman, I did with the ABC last year, I wanted to go on this journey with my young mate Riley, who's 13 years old. Similar thing. Riley, I thought I need to get the world to see Riley for who he is. He's just so driven, so motivated. He loves technology and he wants to see how it's going to improve the world. So when he was young, Riley used to look at the lights, try and turn them on. He used to stare at the TV and try and make it change channel. He was born with high-level cerebral palsy than Jess, but he really does just set his mind to very big goals. So I said, okay, we can create that. We'll create it on TV. It's called technological telekinesis. We're going to design a headband that picks up on those electrical signals of your eyes whenever you move your eyes and form a technological bridge between you and the TV and the lights. That's all good. I said, but if you could control anything, what would you control? And I asked him at the point this photo was taken, and he said, I want to drive a car. And I went, shit. I went, don't you want to fly a drone or something? He's like, no, I want to drive a car. I went, oh, okay. And I thought about it, called up my producers and said, we've got to think big. We're going to drive a car.
Left.
Can Riley's eyes really steer this thing?
Go again. Take your time. Left.
Oh! There we go. All right, everyone, we're going to have a go. So that headband is picking up on the little electrical signals of Riley's eyes, and he is then in complete control of the vehicle. So when he looks up, he takes off. When he turns his eyes left and right, he steers.
Okay, ready? Everyone? Let's get a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Turn the right way.
We decided not to take it slow because we got to think big, right? Now, he was so persistent. He's going, I'm going to make it from the start to the finish of this obstacle course, and he just kept persisting.
2, 1. Take it easy. Forward.
Clearly, I'm the one who's nervous in that car. Now, Riley, you can see that motivation, that drive that he's got. He was so determined. He'd crashed 25 times that day, and this was the last run.
We got there.
Oh, so good. I love how he's like, yeah. Thank you. Well, look, I've learned so much from Riley. We're still working with him. He's become part of our team. He's hopefully going to run my company one day. The main message is here. Always continue to seek inspiration and purpose. When you find inspiration, you find purpose in your life, that's when things just start to take off. I went from being the almost dropout kid to finding a purpose in life and getting to work towards big, big goals. And I love it. And the people I get to work with are amazing. So we all have a lot of fun. Rapid change. The world is changing so quickly. All these technologies are rapidly advancing, but this is an opportunity for us to steer as a society, to understand what's coming out, to steer that change, and to come up with big ideas. So open your mind to the possibilities, think big, and we are only limited by our own imagination. So you've got to think big. Now, we have our event partner today, New Horizons, have brought me along, so thank you very much for bringing me along, guys. Same sort of messages, wanting to work towards understanding that everyone is an individual. We all have our own needs, we all have our own goals, and like I said, you've got to think big with your goals, and this is what New Horizons wants to support through goals towards well-being. So we've got a ball today. Everyone's got one in your bags. Come and say hi to me, please, at the New Horizons booth today. Write a wellness goal, something for the future for yourself. And this is something that I've done throughout my whole life, is to give myself messages for the future, goals that I want to work towards. So write one of those. No one has to see it apart from you. Put it in the well that we have at the New Horizons booth, and that's just a little message that you've put out there that you're going to try and commit to and work towards. Trust me, it's a good idea. Thank you so much for having me.